Hi there, this is Dennis Velco with OutBüro. You're listening to OutBüro Voices, the video interview and podcast interview, new sessions with LGBT leaders, entrepreneurs, and professionals around the globe. Today, I am so thrilled to be chatting with Phil Bohlender. We have actually had numerous conversations on the telephone over the last year or so. And this is actually the first time that we've had a video dialogue. So we have a lot of history and looking forward to our conversation now. Welcome so much, Phil, to the show.
Thank you, Dennis. It's a pleasure to be on your show and also to get to see you.
Oh, well, hey, it's early. I'm having my coffee. I've got the lightings going, so
yes.
a little bit of touch up here and there.
It's all good. It's all good. Yes.
So Phil, of course, because you and I have had numerous conversations, even there almost weekly for a while. And, so I have a pretty good understanding, I believe, but and every time you come up with something new that you're working on. But for our listeners and viewers out around the world, give us some overview for 5 or so minutes of your background, and then let's lead up into what you are doing now. And I see you have a couple of your books on your background that we'll obviously chat about. So take it away, Phil.
Thank you. I've been coached well, right? This way. I've been coached well. So thank you. Again, it's very thrilling to be here. So what I love about your platform is that it's a professional platform. And so what I want to share with you is that in 1982, if we could go all the way back to January of 1982, and I won't take you through every year individually, I started my first corporate position. It was at a Fortune 100 company. And for whatever reasons, I had the wherewithal to come out in the first 4 months. And this is at a time when working in Texas, I could have been terminated just for coming out. There was massive anti-LGBT energy going on. And so I started my career by coming out. And I remained out for 35 years in my corporate career. And my corporate career spanned working for 6 Fortune 100 companies, in the service industry. I went on to a family-owned business in the manufacturing industry. I was fortunate to work on 5 continents in 20 countries, and all the while developing this passion and proficiency around leadership. I felt very responsible as a leader. I felt very responsible for the people that I was working with and also for the work that was entrusted to me. So lots of focus and lots of attention on developing as a leader. And what's key to me about being a leader is this coaching and mentoring model. So it's not the heavy stick and the, coming at people in really harsh ways, but really about empowering them and asking them questions about how they want to lead and how they want to become bigger and better leaders. And then what happened was it seemed as though the place to be the one who developed other leaders was in the places where there was the most chaos. And so what I loved was I kept getting called in to take operations and turn them upside down and put them back together because they were completely out of whack. One example was I took a job, and it was very interesting because all throughout the interview process, I kept asking them, so what am I walking into? So what's the inventory? What are some of the key issues that you want me to take on right away and get solved? They wouldn't tell me, they wouldn't tell me, they wouldn't tell me. I'm a risk taker. I liked enough about the job that I took the job and I moved my family, my partner at the time, to another city in order to take on this job. When I went into this job in the first week, I asked for the reports around the inventory. The reports came in and they were stacked this high and they were all across my credenza. I said, I just want the summary page. Show me the summary page. I looked at the summary page, Dennis, and it had the number 83 on it. And I said, I thought the standard was 5. They said, it is. I said, so the inventory is at 83 days and we need to get it to 5 or under. So there's a whole story around how I got it to 5 or under with the working around the leadership development and the business transformation. So 35 years, really excited about what I did during that time. I will tell you that I'm a risk taker and an adventurer when it comes to my career. So I'm not afraid of ever doing anything that other people might walk away from. And it was interesting as I reflected, having my own business over the last 3 years, maybe, just maybe, some of the jobs, while I was qualified for them, there probably weren't people out there as crazy as me to take them. So I got to take on these jobs and literally turn things upside down and put them back together. So just a rich, rich, rich corporate career.
Awesome. Okay. And so, tell us about some of the books, so that, because you do have them right up in your background. So why don't we jump into those? 'Cause I know you and I could then spin off into lots of dialogue. So.
Excellent. So what I'll tell you about is the first book. It's on the top there. You can tell I've never done the weather. So the first book is called The 7 Essential Traits of Leaders. And what came to me was that every leader must have a style. So it's the thing around being intentional. It's the thing about having, as we call it now, a brand around your leadership. So the 7 Essential Traits for Leaders, for me, leaders is an acronym. And so each of those acronyms is a trait, characteristic that you want to take into your leadership style. It's what I model my leadership style around. So if not these 7, pick 3 or 7 or some number that works for you. So I'll just tease with the first one. The first one, L, is for listening. And what I know over and over again is that being a listener is about being intentional. It's about pausing and letting the other person, inviting the other person to share and speak. So that book is really exciting, and it's gotten a lot of attention in terms of doing some speaking gigs, some workshops here locally, and now, of course, in the COVID environment, I'm delivering a program around that book in the virtual world. The Coach's book is the second of the books that I didn't even know that I was going to write, and it's really around being a coach within the leadership model. And so I'll let you figure out what the Coach's acronym are. And what's interesting about it is it's a really great complement to the leadership. And I thought, okay, I have one for one end of the book and, the shelf and the other end of the book. So now I have these bookends and I'm done. And don't you know, recently I got this idea for writing a book called The 7 Essential Traits of Mentors, because at my age, I'm really stepping into being a mentor for other leaders. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to offer those 7 traits around how to be a mentor to others. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be my age in order to be a mentor. Certainly there are younger people who mentor me around technology on a regular basis, and I'm really grateful for them. So my books are really centered around leadership, coaching, and mentoring. And the whole idea to it is be intentional as a leader.
Awesome. Very good.
Thank you.
And pardon me. And I do like the, we're always evolving.
Yes.
Businesses are always evolving. You're always evolving. No, let me take that back. Businesses are not always evolving. And if they don't constantly evolve, what do? They go out of business,
yes.
Right?
Yes.
They don't adapt. Look at industry, look at businesses that were common household names just 8 years ago, 10 years ago.
Yes.
And they're nowhere now.
Exactly.
And, like Barnes and Noble, for example. I mean, there are very few stores I think are even out there.
Yep.
And as people, we have to do the same, right?
Yes.
If we don't constantly take a learning, which is, I personally, like you, love challenging situations. In my corporate consulting, I was known as a paratrooper. So I would go into the worst accounts, and the worst accounts where projects were not being delivered, the consultants on it, because at one point I had 38 staff. And so, let's say I was the founder of the company. So, but even before I became a business owner, I was known for that. So if I was working for a consulting firm that had a project, and if I had any at all, not even domain experience on what was going on, just pure project management,
Yes.
they would send me in.
Exactly.
And so, but yeah, so for me, constantly learning is one of the hallmarks, and constantly adapting. And so you started out with the leadership book and the coaching book, and moving on to the mentorship book, I think is great. Now, would you recommend kind of reading them in that order? Or is there maybe, now that you have three, is there maybe a different order that you think makes sense for someone? Or are they each and to themselves, kind of their own island?
So that's a really great question, and one that I wouldn't have thought of because of the fact that I only thought I was going to write the one book. Now I have two with the third one on its way, right? So if I were coaching, let's see, if I were leading, coaching, or mentoring someone, and they asked me that question, likely what I would do is I would have them start with the leadership book. I firmly believe that everyone is a leader in their life. So they may have the formal title of it, or they may not. However, I think being a leader is a universal. And so for me, I would have people read the leader's book first and then follow it by the coaching, because the coaching really gives the underpinning to the leadership model. Because when you're a coach in the leadership role, you're going to be more engaging, empowering, supportive, these kinds of things that really, my experience is this, Dennis, that those things in your leadership model that include coaching bring out the best in others. People are more likely to do more for you. They're more likely to do more for the organization when they're coached. And coaching, of course, for me is around asking versus telling, and then opening the space for them to find their own solutions to it. Because people, let's face it, people don't want to be told what to do. They want to be asked for their opinions and valued. So first book, leaders. Second book, coaches. And then when mentors comes out, by all means, buy it and read it. And what I'll tell you is that these are very, very quick reads. These are not meant to be textbooks. They're not meant to be, long, laborious reads. These are typically reads that can be done in under 2 hours. At the end of each chapter, there are a set of reflection questions as well as review. So it's intended to have the reader do some application immediately thereafter. So not only do you read it, not only do you do the reflections at the end, but you put it somewhere close to you that you can pick it up when you want to look at something around, let's say, educating. So you're in the middle of something that calls for you to educate. Pull the book out, read the chapter, see what comes to you, either from the chapter or from your own thoughts, and then move forward.
Okay, so is that the whole book is about a 2-hour read?
Yes. Yeah, they're less than 160 pages intentionally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, I'm a slow reader, so that would still take me a little bit of time.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because I was brought up where my dad read books to us at night before we would go to sleep. So I'm conditioned to fall asleep when I start reading. So I have to be in a very uncomfortable chair with a lot of light on me and have the book in front of me in order to read it and not fall asleep.
Oh, okay. Well, and I'm more, even as a kid personally, I'm more of an auditory learner. So you tell me something, that's like watching YouTube's, people go, if you want to learn something, or it's probably on YouTube, right? You want to change your oil, look it up on YouTube. Your make and model is probably there. And it's true.
Yes.
It's out there. And right now I'm learning video editing for a particular new software editing system. And it's just YouTube after YouTube after YouTube. So I can watch it and I can hear it.
Yes.
But if I were to have to sit down with a manual, like especially this, because it has everything you could imagine in it. I mean, Hollywood movies are made on the software that I'm using.
Wow.
And so, I mean, the book would be this thick, right? So there's no way. So I appreciate as someone, so that would be a size of book that I would possibly tackle.
Oh, nice. Thank you.
So that's good to know.
Yes.
And it's good that you have those little reflection, kind of internal mental workshops at the end of each small chapter. So, and as you were talking, something, that I was thinking about, I was intently listening, but you triggered something in me as a parent.
Uh-huh.
And, and just as a person, as a human, as a past life partner, single right now, but still, I recall the days, it wasn't so long ago, is, the leadership skills that you learn for your work environment can also be applied in your everyday life.
Yes.
Hell, how many times have at least in my past relationship, just deciding on where to go for dinner on Friday night.
Yes.
If I didn't make the decision, it typically didn't happen, or it was, I typically had to be the one. My ex was just like that.
Yeah.
And so, and it wasn't necessarily that I was trying to lead or trying to make all the decisions. It's just, we'll just say it's I'm looking for more of a different kind of person now, but one with a little bit about it.
Yep.
But that's what made me think about, the leadership skills in your own personal life, whether that's with friends, and it's not about lead in this way, do what I say now, right? No,
Right.
We're not talking authoritarian.
Right.
We're talking leadership, and leadership is also about working with other people and not always being the leader at all and every 100% of the moments of the time, right?
Yes.
Because that's not being a good leader.
No.
So just trying to bring that out so folks kind of hear that. And so learning leadership skills, everyone out there, it is pertinent to your entire life. And what's great is whenever you, as a parent, for example, let's say, you're like my son's 10 and a half, and there are definitely leadership skills in parenting. And if you, and I don't, I can't think of any book out there, not that I've, off the top of my head, that really talks about parenting in that way. That would be a really good book. Not for me to write, but if you're out there, someone who is a parent and a leadership coach, I just gave you a fantastic book idea.
Yes.
And then there's also the nonprofit world, and obviously, and there's even for students. So if you're a student out there, there's leadership in and around your school, your doing activities within your community, and all of that could lead to scholarships.
Yes.
So it's a very, very fundamental ability that is probably why you started with that, right?
Well, it's very interesting because you're spot on with this, and what I love about it is that part of my mission is to share ideas, thoughts, and whatnot, either through the book or other things, and then cause people to go into their own reflection and thoughts, and that's exactly what you did. And so, two things come to mind for me. One of the very first people that I worked with is a single mother who has, I think, 4 or 5 boys. And when she saw my book and read it, she reached out to me and said, I wish that you would work with parents because I would love to be your client. And I said, well, why wouldn't I work with you as a parent? And so we worked together, and it was really exciting seeing her. No, I appreciate it a lot. I appreciate that you reflected on that, and you, like I say, you were spot on. You picked up on a couple of things that are near and dear to me.
Awesome. Yeah. And so, so what are you doing now?
Yes. So by my count, I have been home for about 115 days. So my last gig was speaking at the leadership forum for the iBank Association of America here in San Antonio. They were one of the last groups to come into San Antonio for their convention. So I spoke at their event in March, and then, don't you know, a couple days later, there started to be this news about this COVID thing. And so my husband is actually a transplant survivor. And as a result of that, he has a suppressed immune system. I'm told that I'm in the vulnerable population, being over 60. And so between the two of us, we decided that we were going to stay at home. So I think I'm home now about 115 days. I've been out 5 times, most recently to go vote, because voting is very important to me. And so what am I doing right now? What I'm doing is I'm working with these people that I'm collaborating with. So a woman in Israel, a woman in Canada, several women around the world, different programs that we're working on. The most notable one is we've put together this program for people who are leaders to navigate how to transition through the COVID-19. So there's information on how to be a leader, how to do the logistics, how to create wellness, etc. So that program has taken off, and it's been very interesting to put it together because, let's face it, we've never done this before. We don't know what to do when people can't work in their offices anymore. San Antonio is now at an infection rate of 1 in 5 people who are being tested positive.
Wow.
There's a lot of ways in which we need to change the way we do business. And one of the things that I've always done is be that change agent. So what I'm working on now is programs and collaborations with people in other parts of the world around coaching, around adding content, material, programs, that kind of stuff. I'm writing a lot. I write write for a column every week, and I put that out there. So yeah, a lot of internal work since I can't go out into the community. And based on the numbers that are coming out of San Antonio in the last few days, I'm thinking I might be home another 100 days.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah, this has been very difficult. Here in Florida, we reopened, and
Yes.
we've had just an incredible, spike, record numbers, new cases.
Yeah.
And it's going to be very interesting. And my sister and I were talking the other day, and she just heard from her son's university. He's in his first year of college out of state, and he's been home, since this has happened, like all universities have been shut down.
Right.
And he's on summer break now.
Right.
But they just got notice this last, about 2 days ago, that there's a high potential that the new fall semester will likely be at home as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they're just giving the heads up that
Yeah.
might be a potential. But if so, you're looking at that that's going to be through December.
Yeah, it's interesting because in Texas, the announcement's been made that the students are going to go back to school. And so now everyone's, scrambling and trying to figure that out. Here's the thing that I'll tell you, and it goes back to my passion around being a leader. So one of the models for leadership that we have available to us on a regular basis is politicians. And I don't necessarily talk about politics because that's not part of who I am, and I don't want that to be out there in the world because that's not how I show up or what I do. However, when you look at politicians as leaders, which many people do because they call them leaders, right? They don't call them politicians, they call them leaders. And you look at something like COVID, and you look at it not only within your community, because we have a mayor, we have a judge, we have a governor, and then of course we have a president. And then you look beyond that to the globe. You look at countries like New Zealand with their prime minister, and you start looking at the ways in which leaders lead around these events. And what's interesting for me is, and this is why I have a passion around leadership coaching and mentoring, there is a way of approaching these things that you can balance the people and the profits, because let's face it, opening the economy is about profits. It's not about people. And what happened in Texas, they politicized it to the point where the governor wanted one agenda and the local authorities wanted another agenda. While we were under the initial agenda, it was flattened. When the governor's agenda was implemented, we had 1,268 cases one day this week. That's an insane number of cases. So again, this might sound political, but it's not. It's an observation of leadership. And what I was impressed with from the very, very beginning of this whole thing, no matter where you were, was it was about the capacity volume model, which is a key component for any leader. What is the amount of incoming, and do you have the resources to take the amount of incoming that's coming in? And it's all based on the hospital beds. So now looking at the numbers, because the numbers haven't been managed or taken care of properly, we're now in a situation where we may not have enough beds and enough personnel to be able to support those patients. So this COVID thing has been a massive lesson in watching leaders and how different leaders do what they do. I mean, one last thing. My husband bought me this amazing mask because we had some masks that a friend made and sent to us. And he said, I want to take our mask up to the next level. And I'm like, honey, 5 days out in 115 days, it doesn't warrant spending $20 on a mask. He's like, no, I want you to have the best mask ever. Who would have thought wearing a mask is a statement on who I am and how I show up? It's a mask. I'm taking care of myself. So anyway, thank you for letting me get on my soapbox. It's not very tall. I don't stay up very long. This COVID thing is just a massive learning opportunity when it comes to leadership.
Absolutely. And it's a massive opportunity in so many ways. The necessity is the mother of invention.
Yes.
So, so entrepreneurs out there, current businesses or want to be entrepreneurs, this is your time.
Yep.
As we talked about earlier, we weren't even talking about COVID earlier, right?
Right.
But, we were talking about how, if you don't adapt, you die
Yes.
as a business. And but there's also in the fertile ground of change and chaos, there's also that opportunity to seed and lead, seed and grow.
Yes.
Seed a new business and grow.
Yes.
Now, in doing all of that, you also have to do a few other things.
Yep.
And that is look at your competitive landscape. And for that, I have I think, a pretty good article on it. It's called Analyzing Your Competitors. It's doing a SWOT analysis, which
Yep.
is your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Look at the likelihood that anywhere is going to 100% go back to where we were just 6 months ago is really slim.
Yes.
So you've already seen people, start little mini businesses on creating face masks, creating fashionable
Yes.
face masks.
Yes.
Okay. So, lots of people pulled out their sewing machine that they haven't used in 15 years and threw stuff together. And then, for example, there's this one fella down in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and he makes some pretty dang cool face masks. I mean, they're truly beautiful. I don't know where the world he gets all of his fabrics from, but they're really, really cool. And so that's a little mini business, or is taking something he already was doing and just adapted it to the current situation. And, taking a look at even your own current business and how do you adapt? So for an example, on yesterday's or just uploaded today, there is another show which kind of goes into this, and that is, I think it does, or I'm going to make it stretched a bit. And I tell you what, there'll be a right up here. Go ahead and click on that. Right click it and open a new window. Finish this video, but then watch that one right there here in a minute. And it's called local SEO, which is search engine optimization. So local SEO for small businesses during COVID. And so in that example, there was a local small business florist shop in New York City. Well, with the COVID, everything was shutting down. And these two guys who run that business, AG2 Media in New York City, that florist shop has been their client. They did their branding and so forth. And, you know, in New York City, you live and die by the foot traffic and word of mouth. So it all looked great, and the gay business owner had great business. Well, so these folks took a leadership role and went back to that customer who had to let go all of his staff and said, what about your local SEO? And that is getting online, because nowadays people, you know, they want to search online and they want to find your business online, see what you have, possibly place an order online or call in an order. So, you know, you in order to lead, it's not just that you have to, you know, have 50 staff to lead.
Mm-mm.
Sometimes, you know, I'm even currently still a business of one, and I even have to self-lead myself.
Yes.
You know, but you as a business owner or a new business owner, you have to lead your business and think about how are customers and clients finding you
Mm-hmm.
and engaging with you. And if you don't have the foot traffic that you did, or you're starting a new business, you know, think about it being predominantly online.
Yes.
You know, one of the other factors of that, you know, for example, for you, you know, obviously, Phil, having speaking engagements, it's so much more common now to have a speaking engagement and do it all via online as we are talking now.
Yes.
So in the past paradigm, a speaking engagement might have had to have included, either on your cost or the organization's cost, travel expenses, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Airfare, food, hotel, plus all the facilities, the
Yes.
event, and yes, there is an energy that you get from it, from being in person.
Mm-hmm.
But everyone has to adapt and still be able to lead their organizations, lead their nonprofits, lead their industry associations and so forth, and still have great speakers come in. And so this is an opportunity to lead. And so even for you, you know, hopefully you're already doing this, but, you know, reaching out to people and saying, I'm available for virtual summits, and here are my topics, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Being able to lead and adapt and change. So just wanted, you know, to kind of retouch on that subject as well, because I was very impressed with that example that I got yesterday. That's now on YouTube, and again,
Yeah.
I'll put another link right there. So we have been talking. We don't have to say the name again, but we had been talking in the past about a big summit that you were working on. Is that completely still on hold?
So are you talking about the one that was going to be done here locally in San Antonio?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So here's the exciting news. So I'm earlier when I talked about nonprofits, one of the nonprofits that I serve on is TEDx San Antonio. And so while it's my goal to be a TEDx speaker, I love getting to know organizations from the inside out. It's just part of how I tick. And so I have the opportunity to serve on that nonprofit. And in doing so, last December I was part of the organizing committee for the Women's Salon, which is where we had live speakers and video speakers, all focused on women's issues. And what came out of that was the licensee here in San Antonio asked me to be the lead organizer for a TEDx salon, specifically focused on the LGBTQ community. And so you might imagine in January, I was like kicking up my heels. I was all excited. You know, it hadn't been done before. There's a minimal number of talks on TEDx that are related to this. And so I got really energized. I got really excited about it. And then COVID hit. And when COVID hit, I found myself being on more and more conversations, virtual conversations around what do we do? It was that whole thing about reacting to it. And so one of the things that I did while on one of the calls was support not having it and not having it virtually. And so that was really hard for me because I was so excited about it. However, I knew, and it's what you talked about earlier that I think is really astute on your part, to have that kind of event virtually would not have conveyed the full experience. And so rather than turn it into a virtual one, which I saw, all the virtual prides and all that stuff, and kudos to them. That was really great and wonderful and all that. I wanted to be a part of something that was going to be in person. And so at this point, it's not going to happen this year. My hope and the conversations that I continue to have with the licensee is that we can do it next June, because June obviously is the month to do it. So at the rate that we're going, when we start in the fall and start planning for it, it's going to be one amazing experience. So yes, thank you for bringing that up, because I think that's all part of this change that we're experiencing right now. And let me just tell you this, and I know that you already know this, and it's interesting the way that you talk about change. Anytime that I went into change, what I knew was that eventually it would become normalized. So you and I having a Zoom conversation right now is normalized by the fact that all of the nighttime talk show hosts and all of the daytime talk shows and all of that are all being done on Zoom or Skype. And so something that you and I would have done 6 months ago, because I was on Zoom however far back, now all of a sudden everybody's changed to Zoom and it's normalized because you turn on the TV and you see the TV show being done in Zoom format. So the reality is that if people will embrace the changes that are in front of us, they'll eventually be normalized to them. And quite frankly, they don't go through near the pain that they think they do around the change. I mean, you still click the TV on, you still get the program. It just looks a little bit different because you've got boxes of people.
Yes. They don't. It's a little less production value, but you know what? Also, I find this interesting is normalizing it and having it accessible.
Yes.
I mean, that we're able to do this, that, I then take this and turn it into podcast that gets on 13 different podcasts.
Exactly.
And so forth.
I was just reminded in my Facebook feed, 11 years ago this month, I was working for a massive consulting firm with global presence. And what was interesting was they asked me to do a virtual train the trainer. And I'm like, a what? And they're like, we want you to do a virtual train the trainer. So being the risk taker, being the adventurer, being the guy who's willing to jump out there, I was like, okay, so what does that look like? So the short version is that I had my laptop. I had it at home. The call or the training was at maybe 4 o'clock in the morning because of the global time zones. So 4 o'clock in the morning, I have my laptop and I am virtually delivering a train the trainer to, 35, 40, 50 people around the world. That was my first exposure to that ever. When I was done with it, I was like, so excited. I thought, I entered into the space age and all this other stuff. And now I look 11 years later, and what am I doing? I'm having a virtual conversation with you over a cup of coffee, just the same as if we were sitting in a coffee shop.
Well, that's, coming, exactly. And coming back to, that leadership and entrepreneurship and so forth, taking a look, just as you did, taking a look at history.
Yes.
And this has come up a couple of times in my conversations with other people. And so taking a look back at history and how things were adapted and how things were disrupted, as we had already talked about a little bit in this show, and how this situation gives you the pause and forces the pause for you to take a look at that. But, as I've said, back whenever I was a kid, the TV was a major piece of furniture in the house. Yes. It wasn't a flat screen, 60-inch, smart anything. It had four channels. Yes. I watched Gilligan's Island, Bewitched, what was the one with Klinger?
MASH.
MASH, yes. And, Hogan's Heroes.
Hogan's Heroes, yes.
I
Yeah.
always liked Hogan's Hero. That actor was so freaking hot. The military guy, not the German guy.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, when you look at even in our lifetimes, and for, you younger folks listening, you're going to have the same thing, but it's going to happen even faster.
Yeah.
It's going to happen even faster. So in my short life, so far, short. So it went from you having 4 channels on this humongous box TV that was larger than the desk that I'm sitting at right now,
Yes.
to having then flat screen TVs, to basically watching lots right here on your smartphone.
Yep.
And, there's that disruption and changes in technology and the way that people interact with it. And so that's where taking a look now and constantly challenging yourself, constantly reevaluating what you are doing, what your company is doing, what products and services that you are offering, how those could be adapted.
Exactly.
And, you just have to do it. You have to lead.
Yes.
Or you will go away. And I've said once or twice so far, one of my mentors, one of my early influencers in my life, whenever I was in the military, his name was Sergeant Harry Tucker, and he told me, be a man, never ask me permission for anything.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me what you are going to do, and I will tell you if I have a problem with it.
Yep.
If you ask me permission for anything, the answer will always be no.
Yeah.
So that was very powerful in the sense that it's take ownership in yourself.
Yes.
But communicate.
Of course.
Communicate what you're going to do. And then, as he said, I will tell you if I have a problem with it. I'll give you the feedback. But what that was about was, especially at that point, I was only 18 years old. And it was, that lesson is, there's so many, not to knock on today's kids, but, so many, there's a generation where things were just handed to them.
Yes, exactly.
And so some folks will kind of like, oh, the entitlement era, right? Because they didn't work for anything. They just had everything handed to them, and they expect everything is going to be so easy for free. Oh, look, I'm an influencer. Yay.
Yep, exactly.
Guess what? 12 years to build LinkedIn's group. Yes. I don't call myself an influencer, although I've come to realize, I guess, but that's still, I don't wear that.
Right.
It's just really showing up. But getting back to Sergeant Harry Tucker's, statement is, that was leadership, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, that was leadership in its purest form, in my opinion. And, because he was communicating what he expected me to do. He was telling me that he was not going to hold my hand.
Nope.
That I had free reign to make my decisions, but I was to communicate it to him. And then he would communicate back to me if there were any adjustments that needed to be made.
Exactly.
And don't come to him asking for permission. In other words, don't come nagging. And that, I think, really instilled being the paratrooper in the consulting world. Yeah. Because I didn't go into my customers, and which I normally reported directly to the CFOs of Fortune 500 level companies.
Exactly.
And so it wasn't showing up and being meek and meager and, oh, well, I think we really should possibly maybe change your entire procurement processes or change this and that. No. This is what you're doing. This is what's not working. This is what you need to do.
Yep.
Sign off here on the project. Oh, yes, that's going to be a $600,000 8-month project. Blah, 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 where I'm going to have 4 staff here. We're going to do this, this, and this, and this, and this.
Yep.
And what was interesting too is well, because of what I did, I got well known, and I even had one of my major clients. I'll share with you this one story. So during that consultant era, I had a venture capitalist in my invest in my consulting firm. And one of the other things about leadership and communication is also knowing as quickly as possible who you're dealing with. And of
Yep.
course, I was re-signing a contract with a new phase of a customer that I had been at for over 2 years. So I knew them very well. And they were New Yorkers, a New York-based financial services firm, very well known. And again, I knew these people they were literally my first client in my consulting business.
Oh, wow.
And so what was very interesting is I knew their negotiation game. And although lapsed, I was a certified professional contracts manager, which includes negotiations. And so was very interesting is during the negotiations with this new contract is, I again was constantly having to take that leadership position and constantly kind of push this financial services firm to do more and more to stay ahead of their competition. Mm-hmm. But of course, they like to play, like all businesses, they like to play the game.
Yes.
Him and hawing over pricing and everything else. And so, so this one day we're on this conference call, and with my business partners at the time, and the main person at the client was playing his game. And we'll just say, I'm a really tolerant guy. I'm a nice guy, generally. Mm-hmm. But I do have my limits. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what it was, but this day I was just not having his bullshit. That this client's, because I knew he was very transparent in his negotiation bullshit. Mm-hmm. And so I took a risk. And part of being a leader is also being able to take calculated risks.
Yes.
And so so I'm on the phone, and my client John at this customer is doing this, and it's just, and I just felt like he was doing it almost just to, I don't know, prove a point to my new venture capitalist or something. I don't know what it was, and so I got a little irritated, and but in a good way. Mm-hmm. And I just said, John, I've been in your environment for 2 years, and you keep me there because I'm one of the best at what we do. My company is one of the best. Do you really want to pay for someone else at least 3 months of ramping up to get to know your environment? Or so you're paying them to learn your environment. Now, if you really want to do that, you know who my competitors are. Mm-hmm. And if you don't, I'll text you their phone numbers as soon as I get off the phone right now.
Yep.
But I'm the best. I know your environment. You're going to sign this contract, and we're offering you a fair price.
There you go.
So, I'm not going any further.
Yep.
And I said a few more things and you used a few curse words, but in a tactful New Yorker way.
Yeah. And
when we got off the phone, because I was like, look, I'm jumping on, I need to go. So I ended the call quickly thereafter. Because sometimes, you do, you gotta drop the bomb and exit stage, yes, exactly. Right?
Yes.
It's for effect.
Yep.
And it was so hilarious because my venture capitalist called me right after. Oh my God, what? That's not, if we don't land that deal, we're not going to do, blah, 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 blah. Oh, don't worry about it. He's going to sign. And you're like, what? You can't talk to customers. I'm like, look, I know my customers. I'm the one who goes out with them, having cocktails and stuff. I've known this guy for 2 years. Yes, I can speak with him that way.
Yeah. There you go.
And, but, so was that leadership? Yeah, I mean, it was.
Yes.
And I had to, and that's what I found too, at least back then, and we're talking the 90s, early 90s, is, being in New York at that time, working with these major firms. I can tell you there was this one firm, again, another major one, another financial institution. All of these, by the way, are on HRC's Corporate Equality Index now. I mean, if you would not get a contract with their IT department unless you literally drank the two main department heads under the table.
Mm.
It was very well known in New York that if you couldn't hang with them at the bar, because in New York at that time, there wasn't the golf courses, right?
Yep.
And so business was done at the bar.
Yes.
And, it was, as I would, at that particular day, I went to this meeting at 3 o'clock. No, it was like 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon to negotiate this contract. And at 7 o'clock p.m., my husband is trying to call me. Where the F are you? Where are you? I'm like, I'm still here. So I finally go back home and I am pissed to 3 sheets to the wind, right? I immediately just go to bed. And, but sure enough, they signed. Now, not a great leadership moment, but that was going to take one for the team. Anywho, I am digressing with these little stories that New York came up.
I think they make a lot of sense to me, Dennis. And here's the thing, going back to Tucker that you mentioned. So one of the things that I think why it's important to have a leadership style is because you will build more confidence in your style than outside of your style, right? So if your style is we'll just call it XYZ, and you can build confidence within your XYZ style, then you're going to be a lot more successful. So confidence really is at the core of this. And it's interesting because at one point I was working with 6 different people on 6 different things, and the core coaching that I gave them and offered them was around confidence building. So then they went on to be able to do job interviews. They were able to go on and do public speaking. I mean, they each had different things they wanted to do, but the core of it was this confidence building. So I think it's very relevant around leadership. And if we had more time, I'd tell you about the time that I drank the vendor partner, the Communist Party, and the bankers under the table in China.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was my one and done. I was like, okay, you need to alert the media because tonight's the night. I'm drinking them all under the table and I never want to hear about this again.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, I get that. I mean, it's all about being the leader, and sometimes those are the things that you do. And then at the end of the day, you close the business because, hello, you're seen as a leader. You are acting as a leader.
Yeah, well, in those instances, it was seen as a bro,
Mm-hmm.
as a team player,
Yes.
as someone who they can, because I think for them it was also that if they're going to sign a $500,000 deal and you're going to be in their environment for 8 months and more beyond that first phase.
Yep.
They wanted to know, this is what I believe it was, is that they wanted to know that they liked you.
Yes. Yeah.
And so if at the end of getting drunk with you, they still liked you, then they would sign their contract with you.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, that was an interesting experience. And again, my husband wasn't pleased, but hey, it helped fund him going to film school. So.
Well, and the thing that you said about it was, it just flew right out of my head. Taking the risk. You knew that you were taking a risk that at the end of the day you were going to win. So what was interesting for me was over and over again, when I had risk put in front of me, 83 days inventory, had to get it down to 5. Other risks that I took on, I knew when I made the decision that the decision was a sound decision. And I trusted that the outcome was going to be the right outcome. And I'm happy to say that for the most part, that's exactly what happened.
Yes. Well, and some of that risk is, taking as best as your ability, best information that you have, calculated risk.
Yes.
I've described myself as ready, shoot, aim. And, you have to, for me, I thrive on change.
Yes.
I thrive on constantly learning, but I'm not the kind of person that has to know everything to the nth degree in order to take action.
Yep.
And so I would rather figure it out as I go.
Yep.
Because my mantra is something is better than nothing.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
It's interesting you say that, because while I was out as a gay man for my corporate career, what I wasn't necessarily out about was the importance of my intuition. My intuition is off the charts. I mean, I can tell you story after story after story that people just go, really? So I wasn't out about my intuition. And so as a result of that, I had to get into the data in order to prove to them and speak the same language as them. However, what was interesting about it was early on, it would take so much longer to get where I needed to get with them because I already knew it intuitively. But then as I moved into higher level positions, director, VP, eventually a president, I was able to rely on my intuition with these major decisions that I was making, and then wrap the numbers around it afterwards. And it was really interesting to watch that transformation, because there's only now starting to be more and more conversations around how the intuition comes into being a leader. But it helped me when it came to me. I mean, who in their right mind is going to take on a role where they don't have all the information around it? I go in and take it, then I get the data. The data shows that there's 83 days on hand, and I've got to get it down to 5. Which I did in 6 months with the, working with the team and whatnot. But not a lot of people would have taken that based on the data that was presented to them. I took it based on my intuition telling me this is a part of building your career. You thrive on change. You stand out in change. So whatever they throw at you, you're going to do it. So just take it.
Awesome. That sounds like a potential complimentary book.
Yeah, right, exactly. the turnarounds, right? Because there they were.
Well, so, the turnarounds and leadership through intuition.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna write that down. So I remind myself. I mean, really, that if you look at the backstory around writing that book, as I call it, downloaded into me, right? So I woke up one morning and this acronym downloaded into my mind. And so people would say, well, you didn't do research on it, didn't do it. No, it intuitively came to me that this is the acronym and this is how you write the book. So I've just come out again.
Well, I definitely understand. And, I wish more people were in tune with their, intuitions. And
yes.
it's taught away.
It serves me well. It really serves me well.
Well, cool. Well, we have had an interesting conversation.
Yes.
I might edit some out of me rambling.
No worries. It was all good. Thank you.
Well, anytime you and I get on the phone or start talking, we can go off on so many topics. So
isn't that the truth, right?
That's what makes our conversations always so fun and interesting.
Yes, I appreciate that about you.
So, well, folks, I appreciate you tuning in. And again, this is Dennis Velco with OutBüro Voices. You have been listening to Phil Bohlender with talking about his book on leadership, coaching, his soon to be released book on mentoring, or in the process. If you would like to have a speaker on diversity and inclusion, leadership, coaching, and several other topics, be sure to check out the links where you can reach Phil to engage him for those activities. Thank you so much, and you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.